Welcome back to the vlog. Today is a very special 100th episode, and I'm doing a $550 buy-in at the 2-5 game. The first hand that I get right off the bat is pocket jacks, and action folds to me. Of course, I'm going to put it on bet. I'm going to open it up, and since we're at the 2-5 game, let's open it up for $20. Action folds around to the hijack, who puts in 20. The cutoff makes a call as well. Headed to the flop, $67 on the pot, three-way action, and it comes out 8 high. There are 2 diamonds. It is a relatively connected board, so I'm going to continue betting. Make it a 2/3 pot size bet to charge the draws. I make it 40, and the cutoff raises me to 120. This is a tough hand to play with my stack size. I would imagine aces through queens with a 3-bet preflop, but he has the nut advantage, meaning he has more nut hands. He has the pocket 3s, the pocket 6s. He also has diamond draws, 9-7 suited, 5-7 suited, so he has a lot of strong hands and a lot of bluffs. I am blocking diamond draws with my jacks, which isn't good. All the ace jack, king jack, queen jack, jack 10, jack 9 are all gone. Eventually, I decide he has more semi-bluffs than value hands in his range, and that I need to protect my hand against those draws, and so I ship my entire stack in, brace for impact to be insta-called, but no, he doesn't insta-call. He takes his time. After quite a long time, he decides he's going to fold, and I am going to be dragging the pot, adding almost $200 to my stack right off the bat. I did the math, and if each episode takes me 12 hours to play and edit, that's 1,200 hours or 50 days over the past year. If that's not worth a thumbs up, I don't know what is. King, queen of spades in the low jack, 7-12 of my stack. Action folds to me once again, and I open to my standard 20 once again. The small blind defends, so does the big blind. 3 ways to the flop, 60 in the pot. The flop comes ace high with some low cards, and although I have some backdoor straight and flush possibilities, I'm going to be betting off of that ace. If it checks to me, it does check to me, and I do throw in a half-size pot bet of 30. The small blind folds, the big blind calls, and the turn is a 2 of hearts. My backdoor equity is gone. There's 4 to a straight out there, and the big blind could easily have a 3. So when he checks to me, I'm going to check as well, take a free card. The river is a 7. I'm not sure if he has a straight or if he's playing his range against mine, but he goes for chips, grabs 3 greens, throws in a bet of 75, and with king high, there's no way I can stand up to this. Unfortunately, I make the fold. If you remember last year during the WSOP, I busted my head wide open right before the main event, had to get a bunch of staples put in, could not compete, but this year I'm 1,000,000% playing in the main event, and I'm thinking about opening up maybe 30% of my buy-in to you guys at, of course, no markup, just to enjoy a sweat. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. I pick up pocket queens on the button 6-14 of my stack, and it becomes a limp fest. The under the gun player limps, so does the middle position, so does the low jack and the hijack. Action gets to me. Bet sizing, of course, is very important. I'm not used to these stakes, and so I go for a bet that I think is rather small. I make it a measly $40. I probably would have made it 40 in this position at the 1-3 game, so with the stack sizes and the willingness to play, I probably should have gone at least 60, maybe even more. But action, luckily for me, folds all the way around to the low jack. He decides he's going to make the call. No one else is behind him, so he feels safe. And we're going to the flop. Mono over $100 in the pot. The dealer burns and turns. No ace, no king, please. Okay. The silver lining, I guess, is I have the queen of clubs, giving me a gut shot and the backdoor nut flush draw. I should probably bet my equity, especially since he limped call on the flop. But I just want to realize some equity. But no, the king of hearts comes out on the turn. And the villain wants to poke the belly button of the bear, makes a small $25 bet. I have to call 25 to win 150. I still have some equity with my jack, and I could easily have the best hand with my queens. I make the call. The dealer goes to put out the river. Not a lot of cards I want to see, and a club is not one of them, bringing in flushes. Luckily, my opponent decides 1 stab's enough, decides to check, and I go to check right back. I just flip over my hand instinctually when it's on me, but I probably should have checked. I wanted to see his hand. I'm sure you did too. But he folds, he mucks, and we are scooping the pot with the pocket queens where we thought we may not be. And we're getting adjusted to this 2-5 game right below $700 in chips. We are exactly 1 hour into the session, and I get pocket jacks. This has been a pretty fruitful session with good hands. I'm in middle position. There's a straddle on the button. Action folds to me. I open it to 30. Having slight difficulty getting those chips correct. Wonder if I'm a little nervous to be playing these higher stakes. I don't think so. I think I'm nervous to have the worst hand in poker. I get 1 caller in the cutoff. The button defends his straddle, and we are headed 3 ways to the flop, just shy of $100 on the pot. It comes out deuce 3 and a pesky queen, and somehow I ended up first to act, worst position at the table. I think I'm going to do a little blocker bet, take a little stab at it, see if I can't clear one of these players out. I make it 25. The cutoff across the table in C2 with that big, beautiful stack of chips, grabs 5 reds and sprinkles them into the center. The button gets out of the way, heads up to the turn, and it's a 7, but it's also a club. I have the jack of clubs. Glad to pick up a little equity headed to the river, but if my opponent had a queen, he's calling my bet. If he had a flush draw, he probably is raising me. I decided to check, thinking that I can play it more safe with a check call, and my opponent thinks he can maybe win the pot right now, maybe value betting, makes it 50. I snap call him. We head to the river. The dealer puts out another club, sitting with the jack high flush. And of course, I'm going to defer to check calling my opponent again. It would be a little obvious what I have if I come out betting. So I check to him. He checks right back. Probably not happy to see him with a club. I flip up my hand, and my opponent sits there in stunned silence for mucking his hand. Maybe I got lucky on that one, but anytime you can win with jacks, it is a blessing. It's 5:23 right now, and my next hand doesn't come for an hour. I love to show you these folds because it shows how patient you have to be playing poker. It's not that you're just going to get a good hand every single time. And this is the perfect time for me to advertise my cold hard cash card protector. Get yours today. Link in the description below. You will be the talk of the table. And I want to thank you for your support. 820 in my stack. And an hour later, like I said, I looked down at ace jack offsuit in the big blind. Finally a playable hand. Let's just hope it doesn't get too out of control before it gets to me. The hijack opens for 10. The cutoff makes the call. Although maybe I should just call because this is not suited. I am in the big blind, and I want to isolate, maybe get this pot heads up. I decide to go for a 3-bet. I make it 60, and I get one caller, not the original better, but the cutoff, who flat called. Now flat calls a 3-bet. Probably not the best situation to put yourself into. We're headed heads up to the flop. 132 in the pot, and it comes out ace high. You would think that with the size of the pot, such a strong hand, not blocking diamonds, I would bet, but no, I check to my opponent. I guess I'm trying to develop some sort of checking range with a strong hand on the flop, and my opponent takes advantage of it, bets 75 in the middle of the pot. A pretty large bet. It's only a half-size pot bet, but relative to his stack size, it's quite large. He's probably not going to be folding this one. I just wonder, what the heck does he have? Of course, I'm making the call. I can see him pre-flop flatting twice with like ace-3 suited, king-queen of diamonds. And the diamond on the turn makes me feel even more uneasy about my hand, uneasy about how I've played it, and the fact that I'm out of position against a guy who's probably going to jam on the street. I check the action over to him, and he immediately stacks his reds in and ships them all in. This is where it gets interesting. He takes his whites and takes them off the table. That is absolutely not allowed at any point, but definitely not when you're in the middle of a hand going all in.
How much is that?
I feel two emotions at the same time. One is frustration that a player would do this mid-hand. I know it's only a few dollars, but it's just like clearly against the rules. And the second feeling I thought to myself was, well, if he has a hand that he's so happy to get it all in with, why is he taking any money off the table? I put myself into a tough situation. I'm going to have a tough call. It's not for a lot of money, but I don't want to lose any money, so I do a little detective work.
Aren't there some whites behind?
I'm really curious about what you guys think about this situation. He pulls the 5 out, puts it on the table. I call the 155, not his 150 original bet, but the 155, including the whites. We go to the river. It comes out a relative blank. My opponent flips his hand up and reveals ace jack also without a diamond. We're chopping this one up. But I probably would have folded on the turn unless I didn't see him take those chips away. And the table starts berating me, getting upset with me for making him put the chips back on the table like it wasn't a very nice thing to do. I didn't think it was a very nice thing to do to take the chips off the table in the middle of a hand against me. Sure, it's only $5, but it's the principle of the act. Let's listen into the table talk.
You think it was wrong of me to...
That's just personal. I don't do it.
I mean, you can't take money off the... You can't take money off the table right in the middle of the hand, right? You can't take money off the table in the middle of the hand.
I just don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like $5, like nothing. I was gonna go tip a lady outside.
I was gonna fold, except I was like, well, if his hand was that good, he would have left the $5 on.
I totally understand their perspective. Sure, maybe it was going to be a tip, or why ruin a fun game? You know, why do we have to be so serious? But there has to be a line drawn, and I think a pretty clear line to draw is when you're going all in with someone in the middle of a pot, you just cannot go south with any portion of your stack. I don't care if it's $5. I don't care if it's $500. And of course, I don't hold a grudge or ill will against my opponent. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't even know who he is. And there is, of course, a difference between doing it with $5 or $500. I think the dealer probably should have called it out, or maybe I should have just let it go. What do you guys think? I really want to hear your perspective from the comments. Next hand I get is ace-10 offsuit on the button, 826 in my stack. The hijack is open to 20. I decide I'm going to play maybe a little loose because I have the ultimate position. Ace-10 is a hand that you can really get yourself into trouble with, but I make the call. The big blind defends. 3 ways to the flop, 62 in the pot, and it comes out 10 high. There are some spade draws, but I am holding the ace of spades. And action checks to me, so I'm going to go ahead and bet my top pair, top kicker, backdoor nut flush draw. I make it 40. The only player that calls is the original pre-flop better. Very interesting since I blocked top pair and removed so many flush draws. The 3 on the turn pairs the board. The villain checks the action over to me again, and I'm going to continue betting, value betting against Jack 10, Queen 10, pocket 9s, and charging him for his draws. I slide out a big old bet of $100. Action is back to the hijack, who sits there like a statue who's just gazing into Medusa's eyes until he twitches his pointer finger. Is it going to go for the cards? Is it going to go for the chips? He goes and grabs his entire stack of greens. I brace. Maybe he was slow playing a set, but then he goes for the top of his stack, grabs 4 greens, throws them in, makes the call. We're going to the river. The pot is getting bigger and bigger, and the river is the blanketiest of all blanks. If my hand was good on the turn, which I think it was, it's good on the river. Now the question is, how much money do I want to bet when my opponent checks to me? Or do I just want to check back, play it safe? No, I want to go for value. I want to go for thin value against hands like King 10, Queen 10, pocket 9s. Now the question is sizing. Do I want to bet $100? Same bet as last time, targeting the weakest part of his range, almost guaranteeing a call with the odds that I'm giving him? Or do I want to go bigger, targeting the hands that he has that are just under the strength of my hand? That's what I decide on, a pot-sized bet. But I do think that there is value in betting smaller, unlocking the ability for him to call with a wider portion of his range. And my opponent takes a long time, thinks about it quite deeply until he shows me pocket 6s and uses them as ninja stars against the dealer, folding quite aggressively. He definitely would have called the 100, almost called the 300, but it doesn't matter. Ace 10 offsuit is bringing the chips home to daddy, scooping in greens. And finally, for the first time tonight, my stack has grown to over $1,000. A little over 2 hours into the session, the dealer passes me my next hand, Jack 8 offsuit in the cutoff. The under the gun opens to 15. I make the call, maybe a little loose, maybe a little outside of my range. The button makes the call as well. The big blind defends, 62 in the pot, 4 ways to the flop, and it comes with 1 club, ace high. Action checks through. We go to the turn. It's a jack, bringing my hand into the mix, but you have to be careful. It is 4 ways. Action checks to me again, and with only the button behind me not checking, I'm going to throw out a stab. I make it 25, and I get 1 caller, the original pre-flop better, the under the gun player who's a very good player and also a friend of mine. But we show no mercy to friends in this game. It's like boxing. Just because you punch each other in the face over and over again doesn't mean you can't hug it out at the end. And the river comes an 8, giving me 2 paired. And when the villain checks it to me, I know I have the best hand. I'm going to be going for value. I'm going to be a little embarrassed to show my hand, but it doesn't matter because I'll be embarrassed while stacking more and more chips into my stack. I throw out 3 greens, makes it 75, and that's going to push my opponent out of the pot.
Good fold. I didn't want to have to show you. I didn't have anything on the flop.
I give my buddy a little friendly banter, make him question his decision to fold while I stack up his hard-earned money into my groin stack at 1169 in my stack. And the next hand I get is pocket kings. Action folds to the cutoff, who makes the limp while adding $300 to his stack. I make it 20. The cutoff makes a quick call, doesn't throw in enough. The dealer has to let him know, no, sir, it's 20. He throws in the extra 5. We're going to the flop. And the flop comes out ace high, 2 spades. I do have the king of spades. I probably should continuation bet with my hand, but I check it to my opponent. My opponent immediately grabs some reds, throws in 25. These, what I like to call quick bets, often come with not a lot of thought, so they could indicate a bluff, or he could just be betting an ace. Regardless, my hand's too strong to fold. I make the call. We go to the turn, and the turn brings another spade. Now I'm seriously drawing to the second nuts, but the ace of spades is still out there. My opponent could have it. I check to him, and once again, he does a quick bet. He looks at his cards and just grabs the closest stack to him and slides it into the middle of the pot. It's a $100 bet. And sure, I have pocket kings. I'm drawing to a very strong hand, but I could be walking myself down a plank into an ocean of pain, especially if my opponent has the magical ace of spades. Of course, I could have called a smaller bet, but an over pot-sized bet, I think it's just too much. I'm priced out. Although I had high hopes for my kings, I decide to play them safe, and I throw them into the muck. So it's the 100th episode, and I'm sure you have watched a handful of episodes. If you can think back, what has been your favorite episode? I really like the $200 to $2,200. I'm going to post that one at the end of the video. 10-9 offsuit in the big blind, 11-29 in my stack. The under the gun player limps. The small blind makes it 25. And I decide to make the call. This is pretty loose. It's an indication, my first indication that I'm getting a little tired of the game. Opening up my range, just trying to play a few extra hands. The flop comes out, 3 diamonds. I have a gut shot straight draw. And when the small blind checks to me, I go for a stab. I make it 30. And the small blind, who was the aggressor pre-flop, checked it to me. He makes the call. The turn joins the flop. It's a 4 of hearts. And the small blind checks it to me again. Now I'm not playing any strategy. I'm just trying to take down the pot, and I'm trying to take it down with a $60 bet. And my opponent calls the bet. Getting myself into trouble. The river's a king. And my opponent quickly sends the action to me again. If he has a weak ace, he'll probably call. If he has the king of diamonds and was just trying to get a flush, now he has a pair, he'll probably call. I decide I've already tried my best effort to win this pot. I'm not going to fire again. I check, and my opponent quickly flips over pocket jack. So he had the jack of diamonds. No wonder he was sticking around. I could have probably gotten him off the hand with a pot-sized bet, but we'll never know. And I'm drifting back towards the $1,000 mark. I play another goofy hand, lose a little bit more money, and realize I'm going in the wrong direction. Rack up my chips to go to the K tournament, a cold hard cash, in for $550, out for $878 for a profit of $328. Thank you so much for watching my 100th episode. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. Cato out. If you enjoyed the 100th episode, why not a blast from the past? I put 2 of my favorite episodes up on the screen right now. Click on one of them. I recommend the 200 to 2200 in 2 hours. It's just a complete luck fest. Thank you guys. See you in 2 days.